All right. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us on a Wednesday evening. Our goal this evening is to fully inform you everything that you need to know about teaching and living in the UK. We're going to keep it nice and informal. It's a Zoom meeting format, so do feel free to put your camera on and you can ask questions that way. We will have a chat box running as well, and we do have time at the end for individual questions. Yeah, as I said, we should cover everything that you need to know, so we'll get underway. Hopefully we've got Alyssa joining us soon. She's having a few technical...
London office, it's raining there, so I think when it rains it
looks like
everything
she's getting some extra help from someone there, so I'll pass on to Liv for acknowledgement of country.
I'll just kick off the acknowledgement of country. So we respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of these lands, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation on which we are meeting today. We recognise the continuing connection to the lands, waters and skies, and we pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all First Nations people present today.
Cool. Thanks, Liv. And to kick off, to introduce ourselves, so on the call, there's myself. My name's Claire. I'm based in the Auckland office and support New Zealand-based educators making their journeys overseas. I'm a trained primary school teacher, and I taught in New Zealand for 3 years before I went off on, in New Zealand we call it our OE, or overseas experience. So I went and taught in London for 2 years, and when I came home I've been supporting educators doing that ever since. So it's an exciting job, and it's really great being involved in everyone else's journeys over there.
And I'm Olivia Liv. I work in our Melbourne office here in Collingwood. I am a UK recruitment consultant. So I work with people from Australia heading over to the UK, which is really exciting. I've been here at ANZ UK just coming up to 1 year next month, which is also I started on the schools team here, in the recruitment team for the West. Now I'm in the global team, which is exciting. I'm also from New Zealand originally as well, a primary teacher, and I moved over to London in 2017, and I did, like Claire saying, my OE for 2 years, and I did a bit of teaching when I got there, and then I actually ended up in a recruitment job there, which was good. And yeah, my favorite country I visited in my time was Ireland and Italy, both great places, so could not recommend it enough.
And we may have to do the introduction on behalf of Alicia. I might let you do that one, Liv. You've just...
So Alicia, she's recently joined our London schools team. She's a consultant on the Northwest. So if you're heading over to London into the Northwest, so like Shepherd's Bush, Acton area, then she will be your go-to consultant. She has been at the office for 3 months now, but she's actually a primary teacher from Melbourne, and she's been teaching for a year in London. So once it's all up and going, she's just changing computers, she said. So she'll be able to introduce herself properly, and yeah, she'll be great to answer any questions you have about London and like the UK as well. So yeah. I guess a quick question I'll pop in. Where is everyone tuning in from? Are you from New Zealand? Are you from Melbourne? Are you, I don't know, let us know. Cool, Melbourne. Yeah, love it. Sydney.
Might be a bit late for the Kiwis.
Yes. Yes, it is. What is it? There, 8 o'clock now.
Yeah, on a school night.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Okay. Kicking on. So tonight, as I said, the goal is to make sure that you have a really good overview of everything that you need to know, which will make the rest of your journey planning nice and easy. We're going to cover working in the UK schools, what to expect, the different types of environments there are available over there. Importantly, we're going to cover visas, which is something that you really need to know, compliance side of things, where to live, and then some of our strengths, which is around creating community and the support that we can offer you over there. So, and obviously time for questions at the end. So who we are, you would have actually just seen from the introduction, most of ANZ UK is made up of educators. So we're all like-minded people, and most of our consultants in the UK team have travelled and done journeys themselves, so understand the process that you're going through as well. So it does make a really big difference. We are a global company, so across Australia, how many offices have we got, Liv, across Australia?
Oh my gosh, there's Melbourne, well, four in Melbourne, one Sydney, Brisbane, Canberra, Perth. So yeah, there's a few across the place.
Yeah, so we've got a really wide network across Australia, and we support overseas educators coming into Australia. So that's a really busy part of the company, but we also have offices in New Zealand. So again, we'll support overseas educators coming into New Zealand to find work, and for local educators here, and that's under EP Education. We've got Scoot, who is the US arm. So if you're lucky enough to be able to have a US passport or be able to access a green card, then we've got lots and lots of work right across the states, from the West Coast to East Coast. And then the UK, which is what we're talking to you about tonight, we've got 4 physical offices, which we'll go into more detail shortly, and then we also cover the regional areas for long-term roles as well. So we've been around a long time. We're fundamentally built on really strong values as a company, and that comes through in everything that we do. So it's all around supporting educators and providing an exceptional experience for you. So we will go over a bit more of that shortly. Have we got you, Alicia? No, not yet.
Yes, you got me, sorry. Yes, I I'm so sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you. Sorry, it's snowing in London at the moment, so everything's going chaotic.
No.
Classic.
Alicia, we've sort of touched on a bit of an intro for you, but shall we may just segue back and let you have your own say on that one, so that everyone knows you.
Yeah, sure. I'm Alessia. So I was teaching in Melbourne as a primary school teacher for about 4 years. Then I decided to do something a little bit different. So I moved to London at the end of 2021, and I moved to London with ANZ UK, and I got 2 long-term positions in teaching schools before I arrived. And then I've been teaching for a year in London, and then I decided to try something different again. And then now I've been working as a consultant on the Northwest London team in the London office for about 3 months now. So a little bit different, but yeah, I know what you're all going through because I was doing it about 2 years ago. So nice and
Here you are.
Excellent. We'll be able to pick your brain on many things. Okay, we'll crank on. Actually, and this is perfect timing. So, Alicia, we might hand back over to you for an update on life in the UK. Obviously, snowing at the moment, so that's pretty exciting.
It is snowing at the moment, so everything goes chaotic. I think with London at the moment, it's like they can't do the extreme weathers, they can't do extreme heat, and they can't do extreme cold. So as soon as it gets to snowing, everyone kind of goes up, and it's crazy. So it's only 7 o'clock in the morning, so we're starting off really well. But in London at the moment, so there's lots of things happening in, so there's many work opportunities, especially coming around now. So our school year starts in September. So a lot of schools at the moment are looking forward to getting some teachers already in and looking beyond for the future to starting in their September school roles. We've got Christmas holidays and across the UK and Europe are amazing. They're so cheap and easy to travel to across in the UK. You can get flights at the moment for about under £30, which is about just less than 60 Australian dollars moving over. So you can get some nice real travel over the holiday breaks. We've got the King's coronation coming up in, I believe it's May. So that's always there. So it's a nice long weekend happening here as well. So that'll be nice. The weather's a little bit warmer. And we have lots of educator events. We had an educator event about a month ago now. We had about 100 educators come. We did a scavenger hunt across London, which was really, really fun. So it was one of our biggest events we've had post-COVID, which was really exciting. And we're hoping to have another event happening. I believe it's just before, I think it's in June from the top of my head. So that's really exciting to get all our educators back together again and celebrate getting towards the end of the school year, which is good.
Love it. Has anyone actually been to the UK before? I'll pop that in a poll in the chat as well. I know I hadn't before I moved there, so you're not alone, but some people were lucky enough to have a holiday, or a trip there, which is cool.
Oh.
Oh, there's a few.
Wow.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. Oh no, I hadn't been there myself either. It's just straight cold turkey.
Yeah.
Are you going to the King's coronation? Yeah.
I am not, no. I am heading overseas. I'm going to go to Bordeaux for the weekend, so that's what I'm excited to do.
Lovely. Make the most of the long weekends.
Exactly.
We're going to pass on to you for this one too.
So why teaching in the UK is something that a lot of people ask me, especially when back home. It's like, why do you want to move to London? And why do you want to teach in the UK? And that's a very good question. And it's always something that you kind of want to do. I think from my own perspective as well, when you go back to Australia or New Zealand and they see that you've taught for a long period of time in London, it does look really, really good on your resume. So they do appreciate that you have the experience over here. And they don't, it is seen as like a highly regarded thing to have on your CV. So that's always a positive thing to have. It steps out of your comfort zone. I think, moving to a different country completely, I moved by myself completely. So that was also fun, but, it steps you out. You meet a new group of kids, you meet a different, like a curriculum that you're using as well, and you experience living in another country. When it's so close to Europe, like you can just do so much travel, which is just fantastic in comparison to home when you fly for 2 hours and you're just in the same state. So, it's a little bit different, but it's such a fantastic and connective way to be living in the UK. So you can, if you, I know even for me, I only taught for a year in London, but I've already got references from a few head teachers that I worked with at schools across London, and that's already straight onto my resume. So then even applying for jobs, if I do want to eventually move back to Melbourne and start teaching again, that's going to look highly regarded on my resume, having some head teachers of schools across London on there as well. And it is professional development. I know one thing that a lot of head teachers do ask me about as a teacher when I was doing my interviews was a lot about behaviour management skills and strategies. So having that, experience, you do a lot of professional development in schools and through ANZ UK about behaviour management. So that always looks good as well. It's another, an extra thing that you can add to the CV to make it look really good. Most of the friends that I have here in the UK are all teachers through ANZ UK. I met all of my friends through events that we've done here, and it's really good as we're all teachers. So we get the same break, so we can all travel at the same time, which is really, really handy. You can travel within the UK, travel around Europe. ANZ UK is really connected in a way that we do lots of social events, and we do connect to a lot of things around London, which I'll speak to you about a little bit later. But yeah, so it's very connected. It's very, we're very high on community here in London. So I never felt alone at any point in time, even though I did move to a country on the other side of the world all by myself. So there's lots of different things that it's very much community based here in London.
Cool.
Love that. And yes. So yeah, I think you've skipped a few there.
Did I skip one?
I think you skipped them all.
Why?
Yeah, go back.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry. Sorry, everybody.
We're just talking about steps in your journey, I think. Maybe go.
All right. I did say to Liv that
there we go. Really, yeah. So steps in your journey. So yeah, we want to make sure we've got that 360 approach. So we got someone in Australia or New Zealand, as well as in the UK. So once you do land in the UK, you can go into the office and meet them, get your police check. The London office, I know, for example, is opposite Borough Market, which is great. So yeah, initial steps. You have a call with Clear Eye. And I see Jane's on. I spoke to her yesterday, which is awesome. So that's just getting the initial contact set up with talk through. It's a big call. All the questions you have about visas, compliance, and all that jazz. And then from there, we arrange contact from the UK. So depending on what area you'll be in, you'll have someone appoint a call from that area. So if you're moving to Wales, here's someone from the Welsh team over there. So yeah, that can be anywhere from 12 months out from you heading over. And then we've got a compliance team in the UK as well who start the compliance aspect 2 months before you're heading over. Ideally, obviously it can be a bit closer sometimes as well. But ideally, our goal is that you're cleared for work before you're leaving your country. So you don't have to worry about all the niggly things once you're over there, if you're traveling and things. I know people do that a lot when they head over. So yeah, as well, you have a registration as well. well. So that's with your consultant in the UK. They'll just confirm everything for there. And then, yeah, you'll be cleared for work. And then next up, you're in the classroom. That might be straight away, or it could be, you know, you've traveled around Europe for a little bit as well. So everyone's journey is a bit different. So yeah, we really make sure that we're listening to your preference wise and things like that. It's a lot up to you. It's all in your hands. Yeah.
Okay, so when is the best time to arrive in the UK? This is always a good question to ask. I arrived in December, so just before Christmas. So I did an early Christmas with my family, then I arrived, and then I started working at my new placement at my school, so the first week of January. So we usually, so you get your break, you get 2 weeks over the Christmas and New Year break, and then we go back to school on like the 3rd or like the first week of January usually. So then I started work there. So that kind of worked well for me, depending, like a lot of people, I know a lot of teachers as well, a lot of friends here in the UK, especially from Australia, they don't want to miss the Australian summer. So they finish their school year in December. They do all of summer, and then they come over towards the end of January, towards the end of Feb. We do have my favourite thing about the UK education system is that we get a half-term break every 6 to 7 weeks. So I know if most of you are teachers back home, but you know, you're teaching the 12-week terms, and you get to week 6 and week 7, and you're absolutely pushing those kids because they're done. Teachers are done, and you're like, come on, like this has got to, when are the holidays? So it is absolutely fantastic having the week breaks, and it kind of works in, you get 1 week off, and then the next one will be 2 weeks. So we had 1 week off in February just passed. So we had a week off, and then the next break we have is for the Easter break. So we'll get 2 weeks over the Easter break. So so that's always a good time to kind of have a think about when the breaks are, because we do get a lot of jobs here in the office where they do start after the half terms or the breaks. So you might start as soon as the holidays finish. And our summer term starts, so just before our school year goes from September to July. So then if you arrive after July is when our summer term is. So then all of July, August, and then the school term starts again in September. So if you, we do have a lot of educators at the moment that I'm speaking to that are arriving in the June, July area. And then they're going to do some travel. You know, London's really beautiful in the summer, and it's really connected to other countries if you do want to continue traveling. And then and then a lot of them are looking to start work on the first week of September when the school year starts. So it's always something to think about. But yeah, so generally, like, we do find a lot of people do want to do the Australian summer plus the UK summer and the Europe summer, and then start working in September is a good time when our school year starts. Or, you know, going around those half-term breaks or the breaks throughout the year. So depending when it works best for you, really.
Yeah, and especially with like casual relief work, there's no like right or wrong time either to head over. You can pick and choose what days you do and don't want to work. So yeah, I guess another poll is, when is everyone actually looking to head over to the UK? I know some people are heading over soon. Some people might be going over in a year or two. So everyone's different.
And for long term as well, the best time to arrive is the start of any of those terms. So they're all busy. So even though it's term 2 in January, there's still lots of movement over that time. So if you're really wanting to not do the supply or the CRT teaching and go straight into a long term, then timing your arrival sort of a week or two before each term is good to do. And also just being aware with the academic year, it's the same as on this side of the world. So the first couple of weeks and the last couple of weeks of the academic year will be really quiet for any sort of CRT or supply work. So just planning your, don't break your neck to get there at the start of the academic year. If you only want to do supply teaching, you may as well travel a bit more or extend your holiday. Visas. Okay, so this is the very starting of your process. You need to be able to access a working visa to be able to work in the UK. So we're just going to touch on some of them, and then we can sort of talk individually, individual cases at the end if you need. The Youth Mobility Scheme visa is one of the easier visas to get. There is an age restriction on this visa. You need to be under 31 at the time of applying for this visa. There is a watch this space on this visa because at some point during this year, that will change to under 35. So you need to apply before your 35th birthday. They're going to raise the age on this one. You can apply for this visa anytime within 6 months of your arrival into the UK. And the other main requirement on this one, apart from age, is evidence of funds. So you have to show that you've got a certain amount of money in your bank account, and that amount is around £2,500. So you can sort of just about double that. As long as you've got those things, it's a straightforward visa to get. At the moment, they're coming back within a couple of weeks, but the longer you can allow for that, we would definitely encourage you to apply at least 6 weeks before departure, if not a couple, 2 or 3 months before. You do need to send your passport off for that application. So it can be quite stressful before you go, and it's always nice to get that back in your hand well before you go. So the total cost of the visa is around $1,200. A big chunk of what you're paying for that visa is access to the free public healthcare system in the UK. So it's sort of like a compulsory health insurance. If you break your leg over there, or you need a surgery for anything, or even just to go to the doctor, it's all you're treated like a UK citizen for those things. So although it might seem expensive, it is you are getting a big bang for your buck. So we do have a visa support service, and so for $100 or $99, they will take all the stress off you and get that sorted on your behalf, and they're amazing. So they're there to help. The ancestry visa is available for anyone who has a grandparent who was born in the UK. There's no age restriction on this visa. You have to have a little less in savings, and it gives you 5 years to live and work over there. But it's a significantly higher cost than the youth mobility visa. So you're looking at nearly sort of around $7,000. And again, the reason it's so expensive is the huge chunk of what you're paying is for 5 years access to that free public healthcare service. So that's why it's so much more. You can take dependents with you on that visa. So if you can take a spouse or de facto from living with someone for 2 years, if you're a spouse or de facto with someone who can access the ancestry visa, then you can go as a dependent on them. If you're eligible for the ancestry and you can get youth mobility, often people will choose that route because it's a little bit cheaper. Skilled worker visa is a little bit more involved. It's a lot harder to secure, but we have had a small amount of success with it. It's something that you would look at if you're not eligible for the youth mobility or the ancestry visa. And so that's something that we would discuss with you in the initial call. You need to have a really good CV, and you really ideally need to be a secondary teacher and teaching either maths, science or Mandarin. Those ones are on the shortage list over there. And obviously if you've got a UK passport or a UK or an Irish passport, just walk in. Yeah, so that's like gold. So you're very
golden ticket.
Yeah. So that free trade agreement, the other change it's going to make for you is this youth mobility visa will then become a 3-year visa rather than a 2-year visa. We don't have much more information on that yet, but as soon as anything's released, we will let everyone know. Is there anything to add on that, Alessia, Liv?
No, I don't think so. We covered it pretty well.
Oh, you've got a poll that I just whipped through. Sorry, Liv.
Oh, no, it's okay. No, I was just going to ask when does everyone know, or does anyone know what visa they'll be on, whether they've got that or not, or if you have a passport. Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to. Something, yeah, we can sort of advise you around that.
Yeah, yeah, we've got some great blogs around some of the visas. So
yeah, we do.
Yeah. But yeah, Alessia, run us through the location options. We can run through the next with everyone.
All right, so as well as working in London, there are other areas around the UK that you can work in. So we've got Surrey, which is just south, so you could work there if you wanted to. We've got over across in Wales in Newport, so that's where, so in Wales the office is in Newport, but you can work like in other areas of that area. We've got Bristol, and you can move up into regional Wales and to regional England. It's also just good to note that if you are looking to move into like not London and move out a little bit further out, that daily supply teaching is only available within and nearby our office locations. and is currently not available across more regional parts of England or Wales. So if you are looking into moving into like regional England or regional Wales, you'll be looking more at your contract or your permanent roles rather than a day-to-day, right, where we're closer to the offices and more so towards the centre. So that's just something to keep in mind there.
Absolutely.
Oh, what have I done? Did I do it again? How do I do this? Sorry, everyone.
We're on page 12.
Last time I get this job. Oh,
yeah, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
Oh, yeah, Alicia was going to run us through that too.
Yeah, so living the lifestyle in London, it is very busy. If people have been, I do compare it, London is quite similar to Melbourne. If you've been or you're from Melbourne, are quite similar. We are the capital city, so there is a lot of people living around. And it is like everything is here. So anything that you need, like consulates, anything like that is all in London. Getting around the tube and the public transport system is absolutely fantastic. I know we have a bit of a laugh. I laughed at myself the other day where I waited 5 minutes for a tube and I was like, 5 minutes, that's ridiculous. And I got really upset that I had to wait 5 minutes for the next train. Whereas like back home, if you miss a train, you're waiting half an hour. So it's a little something that you're like, oh, you know, London perks. So you literally don't wait more than 3 minutes for the next train and it gets you absolutely everywhere. So then that's why we usually do say that you don't really need a car in London because the tubes get you absolutely everywhere and they're a lot more accessible as they are in comparison to Australia and New Zealand. With your rent living in London, it is expensive at the moment, but I do believe that it is going down like currently as compared to about last year, towards the end of last year. So you're looking at the most popular way to be living in London is looking through like a shared house and getting a room, just one room in London. You're looking at about the £700 to £800 a month for that room in London. And that could be with or without bills. So usually bills will be on top of that when you're looking around. So you might be having a room that is about, you know, £800 a month, and then plus bills. And bills are usually about, I would say, maximum £100 on top of that. So that's always something to look into. If you're not looking into share housing, or if you're like, I don't want to be sharing a house with random strangers, which is fine, you're looking at a little bit more expensive depending where you live. You're looking at about £1,600 plus per month for a small studio or a one-bedroom flat in London. What the kind of is like it's kind of similar in a way to back home. Is like the closest to the city, the more expensive it is. And it's also where it's closest to the tube stop would be the more expensive as it is as well, because it's more accessible. So if you're happy to, you know, walk that 20 minutes or get a bus to the station, you'll find that your rent can be relatively a bit cheaper in comparison to a room that's like a 2-minute walk to the tube stop or right across the street. So that's, you know, it's all about your priorities. I always say it's like what you're actually wanting for and what you would rather give up and what you'd rather take. So it's always something to consider when you're looking at rooms in London. The monthly pass for public transport, as I said, like the public transport here is really, really accessible, but it is also really expensive. You can get a monthly pass for public transport for £158, depending about where you are and what zones you're living in, will depend on the price. So I know I'm from Melbourne, so I kind of just use that as an example. We cap it, so the Myki caps at a certain price, whereas here in London, it goes by distance. In London, did I say Melbourne? In London. Here in London, it goes by distance. So the further you travel, the further you'll need to pay. And the more you travel, the more that you'll need to pay. So it is very accessible, but it is a bit more pricey in comparison to your Myki back home. So that's in London. But if you were to move out into the other areas of England, so like in Surrey, which is a beautiful and lush green place of the country, it's a lot slower pace in London. You've got less people. It's more of a countryside, and it's very accessible back to London. If you're commuting to London regularly for jobs and living out in Surrey, it is a bit more difficult as it can become pricier. So we do generally say, you know, work and live in Surrey, and it's like a lot more of a country type feel to England really. So you can get bigger towns like Epsom, Guildford, Working, and they have really good public transports there and great bus systems and really fast track links into Clapham Junction. So Clapham Junction is like Australia 2.0, as I like to call it, because most Australians live in Clapham, and Clapham Junction's a massive station there. And it'll get you anywhere you need to go across London. It takes you to any airport, it takes you anywhere you need to go. So it is quite accessible to Clapham Junction if you do need to go there. Your rent will be a lot cheaper in Surrey as well. You're looking at about £400 to £600 a month per room in Surrey. And if you're wanting to get your own place, you're still looking about the $1,200 per month plus around for a small studio or 1-bedroom flat. Yeah, and your monthly is a lot cheaper. Your public transport will be a bit cheaper as you are a bit further out. But as I said, if you are commuting into central London, you're looking at about £40 each way if you're going to come in and out. So it's always something good to keep in the back of your mind.
King Claire.
Oh, what am I up to?
I'm
just giving you a preview.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not. It's my mouse. I'm just going to use the key. Away.
So other options, we've got Wales. So we have like we're saying before, our office is in Newport, but we support across Newport and Cardiff. So yeah, it's great. It's a huge, modern, thriving artsy city. Heaps going on there. Yeah, scenery obviously is stunning. Rent is significantly cheaper than like London, for example. So we have lots of people heading over to Wales, which is great. So yeah, for a room in Cardiff or like Newport, you'd be looking at around £250, maybe a little bit more a month, which is obviously significantly cheaper than London, for example. And then if you're looking for like a 1 to 2 bedroom flat in Cardiff, yeah, around that £700 pound a month. Obviously, in terms of transport, they do have like trains and stuff around there, which is great, but easy enough to get a car as well, and that will take you, I guess, a bit further if you want to do some travel on the weekends and things like that. So would definitely recommend a car for Wales if you are keen, or you might want to go on with a group of friends, who knows. And then Bristol as well. Bristol is super cool, real vibrant artsy city. I love Bristol. I flatmates actually moved there, and it was good fun. But yeah, it's a small enough area to feel friendly, but it's still like a pretty big city. So yeah, the culture is great. It's actually a uni city, so there's heaps kind of going on, which is great. Good transport links. They've got an international airport in Bristol, which is fair if you want to jet away for the weekend. It's easy enough. Rent cost, it's a little bit cheaper than London, but like not like overly. So for a room, you're looking at around £500 roughly a month in Bristol, and a bedroom flat you're looking for around £1,000 a month. And yeah, again, transport around £70 a month roughly for the like trains and the buses. Again, like if you want to get a car, would recommend if you are interested in getting a car, but easily enough to get around and not have a car either. So yeah, and we touched on a little bit before, but regional locations. So that's where we can support with like, yeah, the more permanent contract roles across, primary, secondary, SEN as well. And it really depends on where you want to go, whether that's Manchester or like down to Cornwall. So yeah, I guess a quick poll is, where's everyone looking to live in the UK? I know I always say London when I say the UK, but I do mismean the general UK. I catch myself saying it all the time. But yeah, Alyssa, if you want, we can talk about the types of work available.
Yeah. See people already moving to Clapham, joining them all. Look, I live in Balham, which is about a 20-minute walk from Clapham, so I can't really judge, but excuse me.
I lived in Clapham too, so.
Oh, Clapham, it's great. So there's different types of work that you can get as a teacher in the UK. So it kind of breaks into like 3 main parts. So you've got your EYFS, which is your early years teaching. That kind of like, if I compare it to the Australian curriculum, so like, I'll use Melbourne terminology, that's what I know. So like your nursery is more like your kindergarten stage, or maybe even less than nursery. You can get children up to about 3 or 4 years old there. Reception would be just a bit less than your prep or your I'm not sure what it's called in other states, but I know it's prep in Melbourne. And then you got your specialists or your leadership positions if you have like, subject areas that you're specialized in. So if you are like, I know there's like an early childhood course that you can do if you are early childhood trained, that you might look into the early years teaching in the EYFS stage. If you are a primary school teacher, so it kind of breaks out into about 2 key stages. So you have key stage 1, which is your year 1 to 2, which is where your mainly focus is on like your phonics, your reading and that sort of stuff. Then key stage 2 is when you're moving on to years 3 and year 6, which is like upper primary school stages. They do have a lot of subject specialists, as schools a lot here. Like, if you speak in a language, if you speak, you can be a subject specialist like PE, are quite popular as well, or leadership positions if you want to be a head of a subject, or head of a particular year at a school. So there are options that you can have there as well. In secondary teaching is where you move up to Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 5. So Key Stage 3 will be your years 7 to 9, Key Stage 4 is years 9 to 11, and Key Stage 5 is years 12 to 13. It's also something that I always like to remember as well, is that with the years here in the UK, it's one less than it is with the ages compared to Victoria. So if you're teaching year 6, for example, in primary school, it's Melbourne's equivalent of year 5. So that's kind of what the age group is there. So it's just 1 year less in comparison to the UK.
Love that.
Yep, so we also have types of work, so you can be a support staff. So if you're not a teacher, you can just still work in schools, which is fantastic. So we need a lot of these people around as well. So we need support staff from every aspect of your schools. So from your early years down, reception into your nurseries, all the way up to Key Stage 5 into your high schools. We also need, so we call them TA, so which are teaching assistants. So SEN TAs are ones that work into small groups or one-to-one. So that'll mean that a child that is on an education inclusion plan, that might be, have additional needs such as autism, dyslexia, and things like that, that they're funded and diagnosed, might need to teach with them one-to-one. So then that's where we'll get like an SEN TA, people that would work one-to-one with the child. Or we do even have SEN schools, where it is like, a smaller group of children in a small setting school where children will have like, mental or physical disabilities there that just need a little bit more support with their learning. So we do have our mainstream schools, and then we have SEN schools, which are more catered towards the special needs in students. PRU schools, so PRU refer to schools that children that have been removed from your mainstream schools. It could have been due to behaviour or things like that, or extra need that they may have. Their PRU schools, we also need to have some TAs in there supporting those children. It is a little bit different. It's a little bit more of a fast-paced type environment, but if that's something you're looking into, especially if you're strong in your behaviour management and you're strong in relationship building, it might be something that you might be interested in working into PRU schools as well. I'll say most, it's a bit different, it depends on schools. So most schools here in the UK, you'll have a teacher and a teaching assistant in every classroom. The teaching assistant will be there kind of as like they will run small groups. They'll, assist the teacher with any organisational needs, like, any one-to-one, any interventions and that sort of stuff. That's where the TAs will kind of come in. And if you're a specialist TA, which means like, I'm a specialist in Italian, you might be going to the Italian class and be an assistant to the teacher that is working in the Italian class and just running like, smaller groups and interventions and that sort of stuff. So we call for a TA role is more for primary school, so teaching assistant when you're there supporting the teacher. In high schools, we have a cover supervisor, so in secondary schools, which means that we kind of the school will kind of give you a bit like a lesson plan sort of thing. This is the activity they need to do, explain this part and everything they need to do it. And you're controlling the whole class. So you don't necessarily need to be teacher trained or have experience to become a cover supervisor. You're just going in and taking over. You're just covering for the teacher in that class in a high school setting. With those types of roles too, if you are interested, they do a lot of like, if you're specialised, so I know they might get a cover supervisor for a PE day, and you might be covering sport lessons throughout the day in the secondary school, or it might be maths, or it could be science. So cover supervising is more of a teaching, but not as a teacher role in your high school settings there. And we also do have, other roles such as administration, so working in admin. They're not common, but they do pop up every now and then. I know right now I have a groundskeeper role that I'm searching a person for. So they do pop up. So if you're not wanting to teach but still wanting to work with ANZ UK, we pretty much find you any position from anything to do with the school, from the groundskeeper all the way up to like heads of subjects. It is possible to find positions in those areas in schools.
Yeah, amazing. And a quick poll, I guess, as well, we go through the next one. Is everyone, are you a teaching assistant or a teacher, or what are you looking for before we go into the next the types of schools that we work with? You can keep going, Alicia.
Yeah. So we do have different types of schools in the UK, kind of similar to as it is back home in Australia or New Zealand. So we do have academies. So an academy will be a cluster of schools. They all come under the one academy. So that is quite common across the UK. PRU schools, what I was talking to you about, so that's the pupil referral unit. So they're the children that have been removed from your mainstream classrooms and then have been taken into a smaller setting school. You'll find that PRU and SEN schools in particular, they kind of work in that you'll have a maximum of about 10 kids, like, you know, generally in a class with about 1 teacher and about 5 teaching assistants. So there's a lot more hands on deck for those types of areas, and it's very supportive. So if you're someone there that has no experience with special education, or, you know, with, like, you know, it's a bit different working in those PRU schools, they're very supportive and they're very inclusive. Like, you know, we've set people in there that have had 0 experience with any of those, and they've loved it loved every second of it, as it's very inclusive. They teach you a lot and they're very supportive, and you've got a group of people there that help you and help support you through it. So, you know, they're very highly requested places to go if you are interested in those areas in the UK. Nurseries and infant schools, so that's just kind of like your you know, in comparison to your kindergarten places. We do nurseries as a good shout for teachers who, for most, we don't get you to work in there over the summer term or over any of the breaks. If you're still wanting to work and not travel, you can work in nurseries if you want to. But I can go into that if you have any other further questions about that in particular later, as it's a little bit different as it is to back home. We do have co-ed and single-sex schools quite regularly around here, and we do have private independent schools. Faith schools aren't as common, but they are here. I know back home you do find faith schools quite more regularly, but here it's more your public schools that you will find, and your community schools. And we also have borough schools, council schools across the UK as well.
So you are the master of what you want to do. You can choose whatever type of work suits you around what your reasons are for going. If you would rather sort of have a bit of a break and do some day-to-day work, they call it supply teaching over there, then your options are plentiful. As Alicia said, you will need to be based in one of the areas where our offices are, so either London, Cardiff, Newport, Bristol or Surrey, to be able to access enough supply work to keep you busy. We have a custom built app called Ready to Work. You can book out your availability on a weekly basis and manage your own week, really. I actually did 8 months of day-to-day supply over there around a couple of long-term roles. I loved it because it's such a nice feeling at the end of your school day to walk out of school and have no responsibilities. So you have, you know, 0 marking, or there's no reports, there's nothing to do, and your head is clear. So it's really nice in that regard. It can be quite lonely if you're going over as a solo traveller. It's just something to be aware of, but you know, you're not going to meet a lot of other people. Other educators in the school are all busy, as you know, and with their day-to-day teaching. So you're a bit of a lone ranger as a supply teacher. But yeah, so there's big pros and cons. You miss the relationships with the kids, but as I said, you do get that flexibility and the control over your week and how you want to run it. We can offer you a guarantee so that you've got that security of knowing that you will be able to pay your rent each week and that you're going to get enough work. We'll cover that shortly. Whatever you choose, it's not set in stone. So some people might start off doing supply and decide actually they really would prefer to get into a long-term. You will get offers for long-term roles throughout the time, so you can move into these as you go. Long-term contracts in the UK, it's normally anything more than 6 weeks. So what we think of long-term on this side of the world, you know, committing to a year, they can be a bit shorter, some of the roles. And if you're heading over in January, then most of those roles will be until the end of the academic year, until July. If you're taking an April position, then normally those roles are there for the term. Most of the schools will really hope or like you to stay on for the next academic year, but you know, that's all over to you. We can arrange roles for you, interviews for you before you leave the country. We'll touch on that coming up shortly. Obviously, being in a long-term position, you're getting the relationships with the kids. You're a member of staff, so you've got colleagues, which is really nice, and you're instantly part of a community. So you know that you've got nice connections straight away. work expectations are the same as they are on this side of the world, so the work that you're putting in now will be similar, the same as over there. Great for your CV, and as Alyssa said, you'll be getting references from long-term roles as well, so it is good for your career side of things to jump into a long-term at some point over there if you can. And we also do permanent roles as well. These generally will only come up at the start of the academic year in September. And the difference there is you're working directly through the school and you'll be on a salary. So you're paid on a monthly basis in that case. With your long-term contracts and day-to-day, that's a weekly pay rate there, and you're getting paid through us as an agency. So just touching on how if you're really wanting to get a job before you head over, then we connect you with the UK teams quite early on in your journey. They'll get to know you. Alicia, you'll be having video chats with if you're going to where Alicia looks after, and she'll think, oh great, I know I've got a school down the road and I think that Liv will really suit that. So she will sort of know what you're looking for. You want a year 2 class, year 1 or 2, and what type of school. And when the roles come up, then the UK consultants put you forward and arrange interviews for you. So you'll be having digital interviews matched around what you're after. We have a couple of other options. If you're an early years teacher, then we have a relationship with LEAF, that's the London Early Years Foundation, and it's a social enterprise. It's very strong. It's got 40 nurseries across London, and they're looking for permanent educators. They are actually flying over to Australia, and they'll be holding face-to-face interviews. So that's a really good opportunity for anyone who wants a bit more security and do need to have early years qualifications. Ideally, they're actually looking for anyone with a level 2 to 6 qualification. So if you know of anyone who is in that sort of area, that's sort of up to diploma qualified, then they can have face-to-face interviews, and we've got the details there. Just get in touch and let us know. But that's an ongoing opportunity, and they'll be coming over to recruit for face-to-face interviews 3 or 4 times a year. So, and then we've also got a relationship with the Bourne Education Trust, which is a group of schools that work together. They're led by like a super head who's amazing. They've got really good support and really strong systems in place. It's a group of primary and secondary and SEN schools, and they are based in southwest London and then down into the Surrey area. So covering a really attractive area to live. And they also, it's an ongoing thing, they are currently recruiting for April roles, but they've actually appointed a couple of educators for the September start of the academic year as well. Most of those opportunities are secondary, but we'd love to chat to you if you're interested in any of those as well. We can send you more details on those things. We do have some relocation bonuses. And if you are looking for supply, I mentioned some people are a little bit nervous about resigning from a permanent role and heading to a country on the other side of the world and not really knowing what's going to happen. So you can have an ambassador scheme arranged before you leave. So it's really nice to have that in place. We will guarantee you 5 days a week supply teaching. Some people actually just want 4 days a week, so it's quite flexible. If you get that sorted before you leave, then you're eligible for a relocation bonus of £250, which is a nice little chunk towards your first midterm holiday break. And then if you interview and take a contract role before you leave the country, then once you've taught a term over there, you'll get a £500 or the cost of whatever your flight cost over there, up to a maximum of £500. So yeah, just good to be aware of those. And if you're umming and ahhing about the ambassador scheme, it's quite flexible. So if you're not sure, it's still worth grabbing it before you go, because you can just verbally roll off it or move on to a long term. You know, we're not locking you in any way. So it's just there as that sort of security blanket for you. And it can be quite good having that to get into flats as well when you're looking for somewhere to live.
Okay, so working through ANZ UK, there are 2 different pay methods that you can choose from. And when you do go through your registrations and your chats with your UK consultant, they'll go through this a lot with you, and you can kind of make a decision what will work best for you. So one option that you can get paid through is the PAYE. So with that option, that just means that you're employed directly through ANZ UK, and then we just pay you, and you're paying that one form of tax. With the umbrella, so ANZ works in a partnership with Generate. So you may be, once you go through registrations, you might be getting emails from Generate. So Generate is an umbrella company, and that kind of works for people mostly that are working, if you're planning on working with other agencies, or if you are looking at doing other work. So if you know that, other types of work such as bar work, or, if you're wanting to do other forms of income as well as working for ANZ UK, what kind of the umbrella company does is that it kind of puts it all, we pay the umbrella company, and then all your pay will go there, and then they'll pay you directly. So then you're only paying that one form of tax in comparison to, if you're having multiple jobs, then you have your tax threshold will rise. Whereas with an umbrella type contract, it's only going to that one bit of, it's kind of like being pulled together, and then you're generally getting paid from that pool. So you will find that, I know one thing that your consultants will go through that a little bit more with you, but it does contribute also to your national insurance. And there's lots of benefits that do come with being paid through an umbrella company. I know with Generate, they do offer travel things and everything like that as well. So travel discounts. And I know we went through the training last week and was I think there was a Nando's perk, and I was really excited about the Nando's perk. And I was like, tell me what it is. What is it? I was like, give me a cheap Nando's. But yeah, so there's lots of different perks with the umbrella company. I guess it's just more on what you'd like to do when you do move over here. If you're wanting to just work with, that's kind of what if you're just wanting to work for the one agency and see how you go from there, or if you are wanting to look at different pay options, like if you want to do bar work over the holidays. I know one of my educators that's coming from Melbourne, she's doing working through ANZ UK, and then over the summer she's going to be running Sail trips through all of summer in Croatia. So it's kind of something that if you're wanting to look at different pay options, maybe an umbrella might be something for you. But as I said, once you do get your more sorted and you have a UK consultant, they'll go through that a lot more in detail for you, and you can kind of have a decision of what works best for you. Yes, is this me? Yeah, so finding somewhere to live in the UK is, I will be honest, it's not the easiest thing to do. I'll speak from more of a London perspective. It is quite difficult, and it is houses and rooms here in London are quite on high demand, but it just takes a bit of time, and it just takes a bit of I took 2 weeks when I first arrived in London, so I stayed in a hostel. That might be something that you might want to do, looking at a hostel or a sublet. So sublets are really, really popular here in London. So if people, especially if you're part of Aussies in London Facebook pages, if you're, Aussies will go back to Australia for 3 weeks, and they'll want someone to cover the room, so cover the rent, and they might get you in for those 3 weeks to go into their rooms as you arrive. So that's always something to look into as well. It's a good way to meet people. But I stayed in a hostel. I know Wombats is a really popular hostel here in London. A lot of people go there, a lot of Australians. So, if you're wanting to meet more people. So I stayed there for 2 weeks, and then from there you kind of just move out and just go to a lot of viewings. As I said, the most popular way of living in London is through a share house. So you might have a 5-bedroom house, and each person will be living there, especially if you're moving as a couple. You will find that you can get rooms that are available for couples, or some that aren't available for couples. And it's moving in with housemates already in the house. So you won't have to worry about furniture or anything like that, as most rooms and places are already furnished. So you'll just have to mainly buy bed sheets and things that you want for your room, and everything else is kind of included into that. So yeah, most places are already furnished. You'll get everything there, unless you're going off and buying getting your own place through like a agency. But usually, if you're just getting through like a share house, everything else is pretty much all done for you. Just moving into already preset house. Utility bills and council tax may or may not be included in your rent, so that's always something to look for. So when you are looking at rooms, they might say, you know, £600 a month, and you're like, oh, great. Then they go, oh, but it's bills included, so it might go up a little bit more than that. So it's always good to double check that when they are giving you like a rate on the room, just double check if it's utility bills and council rates are included or not. As I said, so like Aussies in London and Kiwis in London are really, really active Facebook groups. If you are trying to find a place, they have like weekly like kind of blogs that they do for people that are trying to find a place or people that have rooms available. I always find it's easier for me, like my best advice to give to you would be to do it when you're here. You can start looking while you're still back in Australia or New Zealand before you do arrive. But what will happen is if you'll message like lots of people up, say for Spare Room, for example, is what I use, so spareroom.com. I will message people interested in a room, and then they'll ask you to come and view it. So you can do virtual viewings, but then it's just something a little bit different. I always like to say, especially when I moved here, that definitely see the room when you're here. It's not like back home you can see a house on, you know, on Google, and then you go to the house and it looks exactly the same. Whereas compared to here, the rooms are relatively smaller. So you might be looking at a room that looks fantastic online, and you get there and it's like a little shoebox room and you're paying £800 for it. So it's always something to keep in mind. Like the best advice I could give you, unless you kind of know people already here that can kind of do it for you, but the best advice I could give you is to try and find temporary accommodation when you first arrive, and then go and do some viewings in person. So it kind of gives you a good feel of the place, feel of the room, and it also gives you a chance to get to know the people that are living in the house and see if you're going to get along with them. It's probably nothing worse than moving into a house where you don't like the people you live with. It doesn't make it a fun group. But Spare Room's a really good website to look at. Rightmove is another popular one as well. And if you're moving with a group of people, you can find your own properties. It's just a little bit, it's more like a tedious thing to do rather than getting into a spareroom.com. A lot of rooms do go up to about 2 to 3 months before they are available. So it is something you could start looking on Spare Room or Rightmove, you know, 3 to 2 months before you are moving over here. They do start advertising rooms relatively early as they are really popular. It is very competitive, I will tell you that. So you might be, I know I was competing for my room that I'm currently in against another 40 people, and they kind of just shortlist. So you might get about people, I know my landlord says she got about 300 messages for the room in the first 20 minutes that she had the ad up on Spare Room. And then from there, she kind of has to shortlist. So it is quite competitive. You have to be pretty quick, which is why we generally do recommend doing finding a place to live and a room when you do arrive in the UK. Some good tips as well as like, you know, being prepared is just doing lots of research on areas that you might like. As I said to you before, the closest to the central London you are, the more expensive it's going to be. And what your budget is. So you can kind of, as I said, if like one thing that I liked, what I did is I found like a tube line that I wanted to use. And for me, it was the Northern Line. So I just found, and then I just looked at the Northern Line, how far down or how far south or north it went. And I kind of just worked my way down from there. And then I found a place, which is Fallon, which is just, it takes me 18 minutes to get to central London every day on the tube. So it's relatively close, but it's still out of the city. So, and it's not too bad. So it's just depending on where you want to live, in the north or the south. I do find the north of London is more accessible than the south, but it's just depending on where you want to go. Yeah, and just being flexible. I know when I first moved here, I was like, I want an ensuite, my own bathroom, and I only want to live with 2 people, and I don't want to share a bathroom. And now I live with like 5 people, and we all share a bathroom. So just be flexible with what you want.
Alicia, we might just whip past this one because we've sort of chatted, you've sort of covered a bit about that one because we're just starting to get a bit short on time. So I might just whip past that one. And then these ones, if we just touch on them really briefly so that we can get time for questions.
Sure. So, you know, I always find, I was speaking about it with Olivia yesterday. So Wise is a really good thing to have. With Wise, you can have different currencies on the app. So you can apply for that as you're still in Australia, and you can just use different currencies. And that's really good to convert your money over if you do need it. So you can have I think I've got like 3 different currencies from when I was traveling. So I was using Wise. So I've got like my Australian, my pounds, and then my euros. And then you can just transfer in and out. There is a little fee, but it's very easy to do. And it happens in seconds because they use your pay ID. And I can transfer money over from my Australian to my pound in about less than 30 seconds if I needed it. So Wise is a really good one to have. If you do have ING is good if you're already using it in Australia. and then you can use it over here, as you don't pay the travel fees or, like, you know, the conversion costs. But unless you're putting £1,000 into your IG account, it's not as, but it is an option for you. When you do get here, the most popular base account are Monzo and Revolut. They're really popular to use here in the UK. They're very easy, but you do need to have a UK address for that to apply for those. So we do recommend just using Wise first, because you can apply for that, as I said, back in Australia. And then when you're here, you can think about, you can still use Wise as your debit card if you're wanting to as well when you're here, but we do, you can use into your HSBC or Monzo or Revolut when you do arrive.
Yeah. And yeah, setting up for life in the UK, mobile phones really cheap over in the UK. I don't need to go through this too much, but 3Mobile and giffgaff are really good to consider. Giffgaff you can order whilst you're still in Australia as well and get it delivered to you, which is great. National insurance, you can't do that until you're in the UK, so nothing you can really do before then. But yeah, it's similar to like your tax file number here in Australia. So yeah.
Oh, thanks, Liv. As I mentioned at the start, ANZ UK are really big on community and events, and it's something that you will get told about throughout your journey. So before you leave Australia or New Zealand, there will be opportunities for you to meet other travelling educators. We have a Facebook group, an active group. We will send you the link out to join that when we send out a follow-up email from this. And then obviously once we arrive, as Alicia said, we had about 100 educators at our last welcome event. So it's really trying to create as many opportunities as we can for you to connect with others. Most of our educators who travel are solo travellers. So there's things like sporting clubs. I'll leave this to you, Alicia.
Yep, so we do have lots of sporting clubs that we are sponsored through in London. So if you are wanting to play netball, AFL is really popular here, surprisingly. If you are wanting to play AFL, we do have the Wandsworth Demons and the South East London Giants, which are big footy clubs here in London. There's women's AFL too, so the Wandsworth Demons have a very active women's team. Rugby league, rugby union, and we do have cricket as well. The best thing about those is that you don't necessarily have to play the sport or know how to play the sport to join those teams. They're like predominantly social clubs, so they do love to have fun, and they do. I know the Demons just went to Bulgaria last weekend and did a footy trip in Bulgaria. So I think that was so that was really fun. So it's mainly like if you want to meet people and kind of just be active and kind of play sport that way, but they do play games I believe the ones with Demons every Saturday. But if you don't stress if you're one of those people like I've never played before, but I want to play, because they're very social and they're very inclusive too.
We've got a few travel affiliations. This pack will be sent to everyone as well, so you don't have to feel like you have to remember this all. But we have a partnership with Kentucky, 5% off all any tour using our code, which is there, which is great. I did a Kentucky when I went over, which was great, and I met lots of people that way. And then we have giffgaff as well, so if you can order a free SIM card and you should get a £5 credit once it's activated, which is always nice to have that have the data once you land in the UK.
Oh, and what we might do with these ones, we've got a couple of slides on compliance, but as Liv said, you will get this slide pack sent to you, and so you can sort of take a look through this then. It's a pretty nice transition over there. There isn't too much to get done, and we have a compliance team who will take you through each step as you go and just trigger what you need to do at the right time. So it's sort of we will make sure that you are fully cleared before you arrive. So we might leave that with you to take a look at through the slide pack, and we cover that in our calls with you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, travel requirements. I mean, the world's back open again, pretty much. Travel insurance wise, definitely recommend you book that for when you're heading over. Like we said before, when you're in the UK, living there, you're covered in terms of if you hurt yourself or anything. But if you do go to Europe, you're recommended to buy travel insurance. And yes, buying flexi flights in case. But if you just book your flight after you got your visa, then you shouldn't have too much of a problem, hopefully.
Cool.
But yeah.
So one of the things I should have said at the start when I was talking about who we are, when you work with an agency, some of you may have never worked with an agency in the past. We are a free service to teachers, so we charge the schools a fee for our services. In the UK, schools will generally always choose to use an agency for their staffing needs. It makes their life a lot easier, and they know, particularly for overseas educators, that they have been fully cleared and they are safe educators to bring into their schools. So they're happy to pay for that service. So as I said, we are a free service to you. So we are going to send you links for our blog, which is amazing. It's a huge resource. You can just type in anything and something relevant will come up for that. We have a learning management system, which is our online PD, which you're given access to once you've registered. Our Facebook group, we're going to send you a link for, and once we've had a chat with you, we can give you access to very in-depth information packs and resources. We have regular events, 360 support, so some of our educators, like Kiwis, might go on to London and then back to Australia. You can make a global journey, and you've got support around the world, strong community, and the local and global ops. So wrap that up pretty quickly, but we'll move on to questions. We really wanted to have some time for that for you. Yeah. If you do need to go, thank you so much for joining us, and we will get that follow-up email out to you. We will get this recording converted, and as soon as we've got that done in the next couple of days, the email will come through with those relevant links that we've spoken of. If you do need to go, again, you can reach out to Liv or I. We've also got Sid, who looks after the New South Wales area, and Tyler as well, who covers regional Vic in the other states. So yeah, we're all one team. We're all here to help you from this side of the world, and yeah, connect you with Alicia and her team. So if you've got questions, feel free to put your videos on and ask them, or you can chuck them up in the chat for us.
Yeah, but thank you so much for joining, everyone. Hope you learned something. Thanks, Maddie.
And next steps, as Liv said, is to arrange a chat if we haven't spoken to you yet.
Yeah. Thanks, Tess. I hope you found that great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Not a lot of questions.
I'll move on to our thank you slide. You can still ask if you want, if there's anyone else. We've got a couple on the call.